Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable. Happy Mom Day, Jen.
Happy Mom Day, Karlee.
It's a nice sunny day out.
Yes.
I realized when I was editing that I'm always like, it's a beautiful day.
You're just so happy to start the day and do this.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not a beautiful day, but
the power of positive thinking, though. Like if you say it's a beautiful day, maybe it'll be a beautiful day.
Yeah, it is actually a beautiful day, though. It's sunny, it's hot, and you might be able to see a nice,
I know, we're a little hot and sweaty over here.
Glisten on us, but you know what?
The good thing is that we both sweat a lot, so it's not like one of us is awkwardly too hot. Because we're both suffer from excessive sweating.
It's really annoying when you're with people who don't sweat and you're like literally dripping in sweat, doing nothing. Like I know at work, I always sweat, and this one girl I work with, bless her, she does not sweat, and she's always like, "Oh, so sweaty!" Like, oh my god, I am so sweaty. And
it's the same for me at work. Don't worry, everyone. I look like I ran a marathon all the time.
But then she'll always touch my back, and I'm like, well, don't touch it if it grosses you out. Yeah. But it's just
postpartum sweats. Like you also get sweaty postpartum, so that's also a thing.
And now
we're hoping it gets better eventually. Yeah, pregnancy sweats, and it's just hot. Like it's I don't know, 30 today or something. Like it's pretty hot. So
it's not a crisp 10.
Anyways, we digress from the weather to what we're actually here to talk about today, which is baby led weaning or starting solids, kind of however you want to phrase it. We just say baby led weaning, but I guess it's a good thing to clarify.
Yeah.
Right off the bat that we are not like hardcore into this baby led weaning. Like we follow a lot of the principles, but we don't follow everything they do. It can get quite
culty, very extremist.
Yeah, and like we're not into that. No. Like we have used utensils, we have used purees. Like we've just kind of found we've taken the chunk of all the things that we really like from it and then incorporated it how it works in our family. So we're not here to say one way is better than the other. We're just going to talk about why we chose baby led weaning, why we chose to do what we did, what we found, and kind of what we found was actually helpful while we were starting this journey.
And if you've already started purees, that's fine. Like you started with cereal, right? The first couple times?
Yeah, we started with like rice and oat cereal. And I did make a few purees at home and we had started with those. And then I was like, okay, no, screw it.
Yeah. And then like it doesn't have to be like you must give chunks of food or, I mean, some people do believe that. Like the extremists can be a lot. But for us, like we just wanted to give our babies real food.
Yeah.
And not that purees aren't real food, but like food that we eat.
Yeah.
And you don't have to start with that. So wherever you are in your journey, this can apply to you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's actually talk about why we chose it. So why did you choose this baby led weaning starting solids journey?
So both my husband and I are big foodies. I can
confirm they're very good cooks.
My husband's actually a chef. I love cooking. I'm just like a self-taught little kitchen gal. So to us, it was just important that we wanted to expose Henry to different foods. Like we want him to love food the way we do. Like we love food. We love cooking. We love eating. We love it all.
Yeah.
We're like an ingredients house. I don't know if you've seen like funny like reels and stuff on Instagram and TikTok where we don't have a lot of snack food, so we don't like it's not normal, like it's not like second nature to us to like go and open a granola bar and like sure I eat those, like I do, but like our house like we're filled with dry ingredients and the basics to make up meals. So it just to us it felt normal to make food for him and make food that we eat. It just seemed like a natural place to start. We really wanted to eat as a family. One of the hardest things having a newborn was that one of us always had to be holding the baby. And it was always this whole thing that like, okay, who's going to hold the baby for dinner today? And then we looked forward to the day that he could go in his high chair and just sit with us. And it's been great. We eat as a family now. It also just like looked really fun. I think I actually heard about baby led weaning like a long time ago when I used to be really into like reading blogs and writing blog posts and all of that. And I followed a lot of people who had kids and they would talk about it. And I just love the idea of giving babies food. Like it doesn't have to be purees. It can be, it doesn't have to be. I love it. It's fun. Yeah. What about you, Jen? Why did you choose to do this approach?
I think the biggest thing for us was just being able to eat together. Like I really liked the idea that we can sit down and she just can feed herself. Like she can just go ham and just like eat ham, eat whatever. Like she just can just go crazy, right? But I'm not a chef. And so that was the part that like kind of freaked me out. I was like, I'm not a good cook. Like I don't do anything crazy. Like I'm not super adventurous. And so that kind of freaked me out. But in a way that I also knew I wasn't going to spend a ton of time making good purees at home either. So it's kind of like, if I'm not going to make purees, like she may as well just try eating what we eat. Like that seemed easier to me. And I was just, a friend of mine did it. And I was over there and watching her. I don't know, she's probably 7 or 8 months at the time, but she was eating food. And I was like, that's wild. Like I just thought it was cool. So there's no like real big reason for me. I just felt drawn to it. Like it just sounded good. And then as we started and I actually like did more research and learned more about it, I was like, okay, this is actually really cool. Like I really liked kind of the thoughts behind it. And I just didn't know beforehand. Before it was just like this seems cool. Let's do that. She can feed herself. Like how awesome. And then we just started really liking it and it was just really good. So I don't have any big good reason, but it was just like, which you might not feel like really one way or the other strongly. Like you might just be like, I don't know, this just seems to be the thing. I'll do that. Like you don't really need to have some like great reason to try it. If you just are like, hey, that sounds cool, like great. Do whatever works for your family. That's like a big overarching moral of the story of this episode is do what works for your family.
For sure.
Everyone is different. No judgment here. Like if you want to do purees and that's easier for you guys, and great. And you already prepped it all in pregnancy, great. Like I did not. So
I feel like actually for you guys that now cooking for Jordan has actually got you kind of out of like it got you to try new things.
Oh, for sure. I feel like a way better cook now. It's funny. I've actually tried new recipes, new foods, different types of foods. Yeah, flavor profiles. Like I've gotten, I'm not a chef, but
you're doing great. You're doing really good.
So it's been really fun.
And baby food doesn't have to be complicated either. No. Like food that they can eat. It actually, the more simple, the better.
Yes.
Because they don't need fancy meals. They just, they kind of just need a variety of meals day to day.
Like, right now I was saying that Jordan's favorite food at 10 months old is just steamed like mini potatoes. Like she just loves them. And it's the easiest thing. Peasy. There's no sauce. Like for me, I'm like, needs to be a sauce with this. But she just loves like steamed, not even any butter, just steamed baby potatoes.
Sounds great.
So, yeah.
I mean, you do love a good potato.
I know. So. She comes by it honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into some of the benefits. So when we actually did research, there's 2 major sites, and they have websites, but they also have Instagram accounts that we both love following. And they are the Solid Starts and Feeding Littles. So we are going to link them in the bottom. I would definitely recommend reading about this. Like, don't just take our word for it. Read and do research. Look into it. They have so many different resources, downloadable like brochures you can read about. Super helpful. And then just their Instagram. They post a lot of really helpful information, stories. They do a lot of questions and answers so people can ask them questions that they're curious about and they get answers. And it's...
they bust a lot of common myths and they also give you ideas, like different recipes.
And lots of free stuff. So it's not anything
much free stuff.
There are things you can pay for, but they have a lot of free resources that you don't have to pay for.
Definitely.
So it's a really good place to start. So a lot of the information we're going to be talking about for the benefits here is coming from those 2 sites.
So I just want to say Solid Starts has a website, they have an app, and then they also have their Instagram account.
Oh, the app is also very good.
And on the app and their website, they actually have a database where you can search foods, and it tells you allergy risks, choking risks, how to serve it.
For different age groups.
For different age groups, which was so helpful for starting, because you're like, oh, like this food, can they eat this? And you look it up, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's actually recommended, and very helpful.
And it shows you pictures of like how to cut it up even. Like it's super helpful, and that's a free resource.
And that's good for people who actually don't cook often, because if you don't know how to serve potatoes to yourself, like how are you going to know how to serve it to baby? And then another thing I really do like is that Solid Starts, I believe it's from 2 dietitians, and then Feeding Littles is a pediatric OT and a dietitian as well that specializes in children. So they actually like they have credentials.
This is
they
their
know what they're talking about.
Yes, they're not
their
just
area of expertise.
Moms saying this, like it's actually researched information.
Definitely. So let's talk about some of the benefits. So some of the ones on the Solid Start site, they really talk about how baby-led weaning or even baby-led feeding. So essentially, actually, I think what we should say is the difference between traditional feeding and baby-led weaning or baby-led feeding is just that in baby-led weaning, you give the baby the food and they actually feed themselves and they decide how much they eat, what they eat, how they eat it. Yeah. Where traditional feeding is like the spoon feeding, where you put the puree or whatever on it and then you're doing the airplanes and you're actually feeding them. Yeah. So that's where the whole term like baby led comes from, is that they're in control.
Yeah, they're taking control. They're doing everything.
And the like hardcore baby led weaning extremists, they like a lot of them won't, like they kind of poo poo on cutlery and stuff, but you can also like preload a spoon and then give them the spoon to feed themselves. So if you do want to start with purees, that is a way to kind of start the baby led feeding style, but also not giving them big hunks of food if that is something that scares you. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. But okay, back to the benefits. This is all from the Solid Starts website. They're really big on baby-led feeding to help foster independence. So they're building feeding skills. So they're actually learning how to put the food into their mouth and how to feed themselves. It's teaching them appetite control because they're in charge. Like they're the boss. They decide what to eat, how much to eat, what order to eat things in. If they want to like take bites, if they want to smush it and lick it, like they're in control of how they eat and how much they eat. They're also building important oral motor skills. So they're learning how to bring food to their mouth. They're learning how to chew. They're learning about, it's called mouth mapping, where they're learning about how to move food around in their mouth and like where their palate is, where their tongue is, where their teeth are. They're learning to move big chunks of food out of their mouth if they take a really big bite.
We should also say that you can start this even if they don't have teeth.
Yes.
Because teeth is like, babies are wild. So they can get teeth at a very wide range of ages. Yeah. So they might not have teeth when you start this. I mean, Jordan already had, I think she had maybe even 6 by the time we started this. So she was an early tooth bloomer. Yeah. But we know lots of friends that didn't have any teeth. I can't remember what.
Yeah, Henry had his bottom teeth, I think. Maybe not right when starting it, but...
So, like, they don't need teeth is the whole point of this. Because they learn different skills.
And the teeth are, like, right on the gums. So, like, the gums are hard. So, like, you don't need teeth to eat a lot of these foods.
You have to learn these skills. So you need to practice.
Learning how to like move the food around in their mouth is huge. And then also a great benefit, which we both talked about, is family meals. Like you actually get to sit and eat together. Yeah. I can't even tell you how great it is in the morning. Henry's so slow. He can take like 40 minutes to eat. And he kind of like plays a little and then plays. Yeah, I get to eat. I actually like put him in the high chair. And then I give him like a couple like puffs to get him started or a piece of fruit. And then I finish everything. And then I sit down and we eat together. Yeah. And then he's still eating, playing around, smushing things around. So I get to sit there and I drink my coffee. And we're having it's like a little coffee date every single morning. It's fantastic. Yeah. And then also getting to eat as a family, all of you. And then how fun is it to get to see your baby eating the foods that you eat?
It's really fun.
It's so fun. It brings me joy. Yeah. Although sometimes I get sad if he doesn't like things that I love. And I'm just like, what? Like he didn't like white rice with butter. I was like, dude, he was like, it was like stuck to his fingers and he was all mad.
Rice is a tricky one for them, but
he'll learn.
Yeah.
And then also another benefit is less expensive. You don't have to buy special baby food. You just give them what you're eating, and you often will serve it slightly differently and you won't add salt to it, but like the actual like foods you're eating, if you're having chicken, potatoes and broccoli, they're going to eat chicken, potatoes and broccoli,
which is
really cool and less expensive. Also, research shows that they're not more likely to choke if they're eating solid foods than if they're eating purees, which is very nice to know because I know the big fear
important
for so many people is that they're going to choke if you're giving them solid foods. I have heard that they're actually less likely to choke if they're having solid foods because they're learning all of those oral motor skills, but Solid Starts just said that they're no more likely to choke, but someone had said that. So I don't know if it's actually true, but for me, I feel a lot more confident.
It's important just mentally to know that. If you know that going in, it just makes you feel a little bit better. Like, regardless of which way I chose, like, it's not an increased risk of choking. Like, it is what it is. So.
And a lot of people don't want to start with baby-led weaning or giving solids because they're worried about choking. But it's really nice to know that they're actually not more likely to choke. Yeah. If you start with those or give them eventually than just doing purees. And then another one, because you're actually fostering so much independence and you're exposing them to a variety of flavors and tastes and textures, they're actually less likely to become picky eaters. So this was a huge one for us. And like, I'm mentally preparing that Henry at some point will go through a chicken nugget phase. It seems like every kid does. He loves yogurt. So I'm like, okay, he can't just become like a yogurt guy. Yeah. I mean, he can if he needs to. That's fine. But it does help prevent picky eating, which is nice.
So something that we did to kind of prepare was we actually went to Belly's. We talk about Belly's all the time, but we went to Belly's and there was a LC there, a lactation consultant, and she specializes in
infant
feeding. Yeah. So we did, it was 2-hour, just like little informal class with her, and we talked about it. And the biggest takeaway that I got, well, there's 2 things. So the biggest thing was about their gag reflex.
Yeah.
So all the information, I learned it in this class, but all the information I'm going to talk about is stuff that was on the Feeding Littles website, was that your gag reflex actually changes. So when they're born, their gag reflex is about mid-tongue, so kind of in the middle of their mouth. Then as they get older, it moves back to its like final position, which is at the very posterior of the tongue, which is like the back of your throat there.
Yeah.
So if you actually start baby-led weaning when their gag reflex is still in the middle of their mouth, if they choke on food, they're choking in...
Gag?
If they start gagging or choking, but it's going to be in the middle of their mouth.
Yeah.
So they're not choking in a dangerous place. Like they're not choking on food. They just kind of like...
Yeah.
Their gag reflex will go and they'll start doing
but
the choking and...
I feel like now is a really good time to actually talk about the difference between choking and gagging.
Okay.
So choking is when food actually, instead of going down the food tube, so the esophagus, it actually goes down into the trachea, which is the tube that goes to your lungs. So true choking is when food actually goes into that and causes an obstruction. So meaning air is either only partially coming in or out or fully obstructing it, so no air coming in or out. And an important thing to know is that choking is actually silent, or there could be little little noises if it's partial, but true choking, like an actual choke, is when it's obstructing air from going in and out.
Yeah, so that's not what I mean.
No, what you mean is gagging, and that's when they're coughing. It's loud. So I think there's something like red and loud, red something, and they're okay, but like blue and silent, like you need to help them.
Yes.
We'll figure out what it is and put it down below. So if they get red, they're coughing, that's gagging. So that's actually when it's like in their gag reflex. So like to us, like normal people, we always say, oh, like, I choked on that, but you didn't actually choke on it because it wasn't in your airway. You were gagging on it.
Yeah. So this is just my own terrible misinterpretation.
No, but everybody does that. I even say that sometimes. Like I'll be like, oh, like he choked on it a little, but he didn't choke on it a little. He gagged on it.
It was just like, uncomfortable in their mouth and they,
But
okay.
Look more on the Solid Starts website. Very important to know the difference between two of them. Yes. But what you're trying to get at is that the gagging is actually important to learn.
Yes.
And you can gag, and then if they can actually, it can go into the airway.
Because if they gag when it's at the back of their throat, they're more likely to choke on it.
Yes, after.
But if they gag when it's in the middle of their mouth, they're less likely to actually really choke.
Yes.
So if you give them food and introduce food to them solids while their gag reflex is still in the middle of their mouth, it's just a lot actually safer.
Yes.
Which blew my mind. I was like, that makes such logical sense, and it's safer for them. So why wouldn't I want her to like my baby to learn this skill while it's still like in a safer position for her to gag?
And gagging's actually like what we learned at Belly's is that like it's a protective mechanism, and it's something they actually have to learn, and it is scary when it happens, but it's important to know it's not actually choking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we've all made that mistake for sure.
But it's also and I found it, and they talk about it on the Feeding Little site too, is that it improves your like self-confidence in their ability to eat, because they learn like, oh, that wasn't good. Like it kind of made me gag. Like I had to spit some chunks out. And so once you see them learning how to use their mouth, you see them get uncomfortable and spit things out or chew it, chomp on it further and then swallow it down. And once you see them work through some of these things, it gives you both a lot of confidence.
Definitely.
So you want them to actually gag. You want them to experience what that is, what it looks like to get rid of it and to help along. And they need to gag and get used to that experience and know how to use it. And it's a learned skill, right? So if you never introduce them to solids and then after like a year and a half you give them a solid, it could just be really, really dangerous if I don't know the age at which the gag reflex fully moves back. No one really ever talks about that.
Somewhere 9 months is when it kind of starts. We're going to find it. We'll put it in the link. I think Solid Starts talks about starting solids between around 9 months, because that's when it starts to move back.
So I don't want to do it before it's fully back. Okay.
Yeah. But
makes sense.
Yeah. But that's a really good point that Jen's making, that the gagging, it's so scary and it feels so counterintuitive that we're giving them foods that they can gag on.
Yeah.
And Solid Starts is actually great at highlighting foods that are like high gag foods, like high gag.
Yes.
Like bananas, they get like at the beginning, But like you said, like you see them, they take this giant bite and they put it into their mouth, and your instinct is to like panic.
Yes.
But then they kind of chew on it or they gag on it, and they're actually kind of cute when they gag because they're so dramatic. They're like, ah.
And their eyes kind of do a weird thing.
Yeah.
Like Jordan blinks a lot.
Yeah.
And her face gets all,
yeah. And then
funny.
they usually spit it out. Mm-hmm. And another thing that we learned at the Bellies Talk from the lactation consultant, Tracy, we'll link her below as well, is that if they're gagging on something and you panic and you're like, and then what that causes them to do is, and then where does the food go? It actually goes back in and they can choke on it. Yeah. So that's even like another reason that if they gag farther up, there's a lot more space available for the food to move around.
Yes. It's like a good learning experience for both of you.
Everybody,
for them to learn how to deal with it, and then for you to learn also how not to react until you need to react. Because a lot of times, like when babies fall, you shouldn't actually react because a lot of times if they fall, they're fine.
And they're learning.
But if you freak out, then they start crying, right? So it's a similar concept in that with gagging. If you freak out, then they're going to freak out. And you want them to get confidence in their eating. So it's really important for them to learn and for you to kind of try to remain calm, right? Keep your cool as you're sitting there and watching them freak out. But until they actually start, it's silence. You have to actually watch them while they eat, which is an important thing to remember. You can't turn your back and go do other things because if they choke, you're not going to hear it, most likely. You're not going to hear anything.
Yeah.
So always be watching them. But you both need to learn how to remain calm until you actually need to step in.
Definitely.
One of the stories that always stuck out to me too about the Bellies class was that she talked about going for a meal with friends of theirs and their kid who was about the same age. And I don't remember the age. I think it was just under a year old.
And it was a fancy meal, wasn't it?
And so she's like, we finally went out to like a fancy brunch both these two couples and the two kids. And she said our food all got there. And she said it was great because our child, we did baby led weaning. They could feed themselves. Me and my husband ate our meals while it was still warm. She's like, but our friends, they had to take turns, like cutting up different pieces, spoon feeding different things. They brought their own food for their baby. And she's like, by the time they each actually got to finishing their meals, it was cold and they couldn't actually enjoy that experience.
Rushing to eat it.
And then it was hard to socialize for them when they're so focused on their baby, they couldn't actually have a conversation with the other couple. And I was like, that's a very interesting point. Like, I just really liked this idea that we could actually go out. And I've noticed it since now. Like, we go out and my parents will be over. And Jordan loves just sitting in the high chair eating. My husband and I can both eat, like, while the food's still warm. And it's just, I don't know, it's so much fun.
It is fun.
So it was just an interesting story she told that stuck with me. I was like, I like this. I like that idea. I want that. Like, this all works for me. So
I didn't even really think about that until she said that. And then I was like,
I want that.
Yes, sign me up.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jen, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience? We've kind of talked a little bit, but kind of highlight what happened.
It was actually a lot easier than I expected. I kind of thought I'd freak out a lot more, but Jordan was like a champ. She figured it out quite quickly. We had no actual like choking incidences and just a few gagging things in the beginning. And then after that, like, she just did really well. And so my confidence grew immediately. Like, within the first couple weeks of doing this, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm sold. Yeah. This is the best thing. She was good at it. I was really calm about it. And it just went really well. So it was easier than
There's a blue jay outside.
Oh, fancy.
That's so unusual. Sorry. We're going to keep that in there because that's important. Okay.
Okay. So I found that it was just easier than I expected. I thought I would be more worried, but once you see them eating a few times, it's good.
It sounds so much scarier than it actually is.
Yes. I gained so much confidence within the first week or two that it was just, my worry was eased away and it was just became really fun. She actually got to try tons of new foods and spices and encouraged me to cook with new foods and new spices. So it's kind of fun to see her trying different flavors and like lemon and lime. And like, it's just fun, which is a big overarching theme of this too, is that it's important to have fun with it. And it was awesome seeing it. And my husband loved it.
And you got to eat a lot more fun food too.
Yes, which is true.
Gets you out of food ruts.
However, the one thing I have to say that the downfall is that it is very messy because like we'd give her soups that we would take a immersion blender and blend it a bit more so that it wasn't too chunky because, soups and like she can't use a spoon herself. And so she would just use her hands. So we wanted it to all be like pieces she could easily grab. So she got soup one day and she loved it. She probably had like 2 little bowls of soup, but soup and just like she just all in her hands, and it was down her face and like all over her, all over the high chair, like dripping off the sides, but she loved it. Like the biggest smile on her face the whole time. And so we just kept giving her more, and she just kept eating more, but it was just like cringeworthy how messy it is.
Painful.
You have to just really let go of the clean thing. And I know you were a clean freak, so for you, I'm sure this was much more difficult. But even for me, I was like, this is, okay, breathe through it, Jen. Like, it's okay. Like, she needs to learn. And part of the learning is the sensory aspect of it. Like, they get to feel all these different, like, textures and like warmth. Some are warm, some are cold. So like all different types of heat levels.
I've read somewhere too that like when they feel the food, they know like, okay, like is this going to be like a hard bite or is this going to be a soft bite? Like
they learn,
feeling
right?
it with their hands, they learn like what kind of bite they have to take, which we know that. We know if we're biting into a banana or an apple, like we're going to do different things with our mouth. You don't think of that as a skill, but it is. Like you're not going to bite a banana the way you bite an apple.
Yes. But they talk about sensory and like, oh, get your babies all these buckets filled with sand and different textured things they can feel with. Well, Baby Led Weaning does that. Like you
don't give them sand, but
but she feels way more different types of textures doing that than if I bought a sand bucket.
And like how textures change too when you play with them.
Yeah, and like a solid little potato, she can actually mush into like mashed potatoes basically in her hand, and then she eats it that way. And
girl's got good taste.
So anyway, I found it to be just a really, really cool experience, and we loved it, and it encouraged me to cook more. As Karlee said, I got more adventurous in the kitchen with different spices and flavors, tried new recipes, and it was just, it was really, really fun. Mm-hmm. So what about you?
So, like, pretty much, I think the, like, overarching theme is that, like, it was fun. Like, it is fun. We love watching him. We love taking him out to restaurants. It's been so fun. Mm-hmm. He loves restaurant food because it's way saltier than what we would give him at home. It's way creamier. We always get, like, nice pastas and stuff. But I've had meals with him and friends, with meals with us, and he just sits there in his little high chair and he's having the best time. And we love that because instead of like being worried about him at a restaurant, he's having fun. Instead of crying and screaming because he's bored, like he's eating. And, you know, I'm sure as he gets older, they'll be crying and screaming while we wait for the food, but that's what puffs are for. Yes. Keep them entertained. Yeah. Like Jen said, the main thing for me is that it is still so messy and like painful because I like things to be neat and tidy. I'm kind of a person that I like to clean up while I'm cooking, and when I sit down to eat, I like most of the cleaning to be done already. My husband's the opposite. He's like, I eat food when it's hot, like I'll clean later. And he's just like a little bit of a tornado in the kitchen. Very opposites. We're learning to meet in the middle. But the messiness, like it was hard for me. Like I'm embracing it now. And even now, like we have our baby friends over and we kind of just like they all just eat on the floor. They crawl around and everything gets smushed. But you learn how to clean it efficiently. And you also learn like the extra stuff in your house, just get rid of it because it's gonna get food smears on it. Just gonna get food
on it. Like Jordan does this sometimes too. So I'm like, how did I get food there on that? Like, it gets everywhere.
Henry likes to throw things and they splatter everywhere. Yes. But you know, you figure it out. You find a way. Yeah. And the main thing for us is that I wasn't particularly scared of starting foods. Like I was nervous because like it's a whole new experience. But he gagged a few times or like took giant chunks of food and I was like, silent and quiet, like, and then you watch him and they take a bite, they move it around and they'll often like and just like spit it out, and you can do things like mirroring it to them. So like if the food's in their mouth, like you actually put it in your mouth and you go and you like spit it out and you show them. And it actually did work once where he took like a giant bite of chicken and he thought it was hilarious when he shoves food in his mouth and he just smiles, then he goes and like shows you. But we were ready for dinner to be done. He wasn't eating it. It was just in his mouth. Yeah. So my husband puts him in and like showed him how to spit it out, and then he did spit it out. So it really, like, you get confidence in like yourself and them when they do that, when they gag, when they take a big bite, when they spit it out, and you realize this is okay and this is important because they need to learn this. It's a skill. So when you see them actually learning and being able to do it, it's very relieving. And then it also reassured me like, okay, this is working for us. Yes. And there are we have seen no shade at all to these parents, but some parents out and about that are so nervous about their babies eating. And I get it. It's scary. Everybody has their thing that they're really nervous about as a parent. But it's really hard because like it's something that you're scared of. You don't want to pass that on to your kid. You don't want them to like fear mealtime because you're sitting there and like, or like not.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just something, it's hard. And if that is where you are, then it's something to definitely consider, like reaching out for help to help yourself feel more comfortable. And maybe you do work with an OT or a dietitian or somebody to help guide you through this process. Just something we wanted to say. Like I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of go into the next part is the 5 things that actually made starting solids easier for us. And the first one that I'll talk about is doing an infant choking and CPR class.
Definitely.
Now, Karlee didn't do it, but we set one up with our friend group with the moms that wanted to do it.
But because I learned it at work.
You had the training at work already. And my work, like we did it for like, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes of the class, like our first aid class we had. It was so minimal. I was like, I'm not actually prepared with that 10 minutes we had. So some of the spouses and some of like our mom friend, we all set it up, and there's a company that will come out to your house and you just need someone to volunteer their house. And we did this infant choking and CPR class, and it was like 3 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours.
It was that long. Yeah. It was
but
like
it was
a night.
So good. Like I felt a million times better after leaving. Like I actually knew the tools, and they talk specifically about infants. And then as they get into toddlers and that shift change, because if they can stand and depending on how tall they are, it changes things a little bit. But it just gave me the confidence, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. If you have a child, it is worth taking this class.
Definitely. Grandparents, it's a great thing to get grandparents to do. Anybody that will be feeding.
Yes, and Solid Starts actually has a free resource. So we got one from the class that we did, but Solid Starts had one. You can get a free download of an infant choking and CPR that you can print out, and it has instructions. And so I told my husband right away, I was like, we need this in the house for like when friends or someone else is babysitting, that it's an easy resource that's right there. So you can easily flip the page and be like, okay, what's step 1? Because sometimes you get flustered and it gets overwhelming. And if your child's actually choking, you don't always think straight. So if you have it printed out and have that resources like on your table, on your fridge, somewhere easily accessible at home, it can make a big difference.
I'm going to go print that later. We didn't add this to our 5 things, so it's not going to be 6 things because I just thought of something. Another thing that actually made all of this a lot easier for us was learning about it and researching before we started.
Yes.
So one of them was the CPR class. Yep. Another one, I'm going to also give another shout out to Solid Starts, but they have so much information on their site. They have information on how to select a high chair to make sure that the high chair is safe for eating, because position actually does really matter. They also talk about the difference between choking and gagging. They also talk about how to create a safe eating environment. I'm sure they have posts on like common choking hazards and foods to avoid before certain ages. But the more you can read, educate yourself, and empower yourself with that information so that when you're feeding them, you're feeding them something safe. And if they're in a safe place, in a safe high chair with safe foods, the risk of choking is so much lower. It's actually like
we really should have added this. I don't know why we didn't think of that, but yes, this is a very
really
good
low.
point.
So do what you need to do to feel safe or to prepare so that that what you're doing is safe. And I think that actually would really help for those parents who are so nervous about doing it. So that'll be number 2. So this is going to be 6 things because we did do that. We went to the Bellies chat.
We did a lot.
And we made our partners read it. So
we got our partners involved too. Which let's go on to number 3, which is being on the same page as your partner. Because you want to know that if, you go out one night and your your spouse or your partner is doing dinner time, that they're doing the same things as you are, because you want to be consistent so that your baby is actually learning properly. And it's not like, every time dad feeds Jordan that he's only giving her purees and he's spoon feeding her every time. And then she's not learning those skills like I had wanted. Not that my way matters, but you want to be on the same page.
But you had done the research, then you shared that with him.
You want to be on the same page. Like, yes, this is the type of feeding we want to do. These are kind of the ground rules that we're going to follow. Like the odd time I do give Jordan a spoon of something and feed it to her if I didn't think she's been eating, or, I don't follow it perfectly.
We're not extremists.
But for us and our family, my husband and I are on the same page. And so I know we're both doing the same things all the time. And it made it easier knowing we both know what to do if choking happens. We both know not to freak out and to wait and see if we actually need to intervene. Because if you are doing it together, so some of those scarier foods, if you're both on the same page, you're both prepared, it just it takes the stress level down a bit. And then doing those scary foods and starting this process with a support person there makes a big difference.
Definitely.
I mean, we did allergen testing together, like with our mom friends. We'd all come to Karlee's after class and we would introduce, peanut butter sometimes and do it all together so that if someone had a bad reaction, like there's more of us who all knew what to do, and it just helped kind of like ease the stress about it. So being on the same page as your partner and having a good support system and friends that can help you through it is good.
And we also share resources too and ideas and
I shared the PDF for the infant choking and CPR, so you can go back and find that because
I'm going to print that today.
Yeah,
it's actually so helpful to have. I'm going to print extra copies for the grandparents as well.
Yes, it's good.
And just be like, I gift this to you.
Yes, put it on your fridge, please.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then another thing that made starting solids much easier is having like the gear. So you don't need a lot. The main one for us actually is we both love the IKEA high chair. Yeah. And the reason we love it is because it's wipeable and then it's also safe. So we have the high chair with an added footrest. You'll read on Solid Starts why they recommend the footrest, but it's so much easier to clean because like we said, baby led weaning is so messy.
Plastic, find one that's plastic.
And it's also the most affordable. I think it's $30 in Canada.
Yes.
Where a lot of these high chairs, they're so expensive.
Hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And fabric. So we have a fabric one as well. We have 2 that were gifted to us, like hand-me-downs. And if you're going to do baby led weaning, it gets so messy. You'd have to wipe it and then throw it in the wash every day or 2. Like it would just be so excessive.
That sounds
so
like
we
my
also
nightmare.
learned kind of the hard way that we're like, wow, this IKEA one is much easier to wipe down. So it's a game changer to just have that like plastic everything surface that you can. Some people actually put it in the shower and hose it off on.
We take ours outside and hose it down.
Yeah, like if it's really messy, it's just so much easier.
You can also take the legs off and put it in the dishwasher.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that would give it a real good clean. We need to do that soon.
Yeah.
And then also like having the gear. So I really like the silicone bibs, and that's because Henry drops a lot, and they're the ones with like that little scoopy at the bottom.
Yeah.
He'll drop stuff and then he'll go like reaching in and shopping for things. It's very cute. So instead of it falling on the floor or on his lap, it falls into his bib.
Yeah.
I liked the flat spoons because we'll give him like spoonable foods and we'll just load it up and give it to him. So the ones that have like the little, like the regular spoon, the food would get stuck in it. And then if he threw it, that food would go flying. So you can get these funny little flat ones with like little like snowflakes and stuff in them. Yeah. And the idea is that when they do eat independently, there's no direction to the spoon. So they just dip and eat.
They can literally just put it straight in and out and they're going to get stuff on their spoon.
But I liked it for loading foods like yogurt and stuff like that, and I'll dip it in, and then he usually gets most of it off. So if he does throw it, it doesn't make as much of a mess because it was like these little like landmines going off with these like big hunks of yogurt across the house. It was very painful. And then also the suction dishes. Jen has a really great one. What company is it? Do you remember?
Saturday Twice.
And it has a little lid on it.
Yeah. So it suctions on. First of all, the suction is important because they will throw things.
Yes.
So if you just put a bowl that's like not suction, like free floating, they'll just chuck it off the high chair, most likely. So we found the suction ones really, and you can buy bowls that are suction, plates, whatever you want. But then these suction ones, the ones that I have, actually have a lid on it because babies, you never know if they're going to eat a lot, they're not going to eat a lot. They might finish it and get a second helping, but sometimes it's just unpredictable. But you want to save all of those scraps, add up to a meal. Like you don't want to throw that all out just because they only had 2 bites of something. You can cut off the end, keep it so we just can put the lid back on it and put it back in the fridge, and it is super helpful. So that's been like one of our favorite things.
For sure. Because that's such a good idea.
Yeah, we can put the pasta in it, she eats half of it, and then we keep the rest for the next meal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Another one that was huge for me was actually making sure you had the right stuff for cleaning. Yeah. So it sounds silly because you already clean your house, but you don't clean this kind of mess on a regular basis.
Yes.
So we went out and
just exceptional mess.
Yes. We went out and got like a pack of the reusable, like washable cloths. They're kind of like reusable paper towels. Because like if you just use paper towels, you're going to be going through so many and it's so wasteful. Yeah. So these reusable cloths, you can just use whatever rags, make sure you have lots of them because you're going to need several every day. So you might just have to go buy a few more and have them handy, have them nearby. You keep them on your table. Yeah. We have them like right nearby. And then also like you need to have a mop or something. You need cleaning stuff
thing that you can quickly
clean the floor. And like you don't mop every time, but you just need cleaning things that you didn't really need before. My friend actually just got this really cool vacuum. It's not a steam vacuum where it actually steams the floor. It's not that, because you can't use that on a lot of like laminates and stuff. But it's a vacuum that washes, like it mops and vacuums. So you can just like clean up the food. But because it's like, it's not steam, it's just wet and then it dries it. You can use it on laminate. And she keeps sending me Snapchats of it. And I'm like, oh, I need that.
That looks great.
They're like, obviously they're a big investment. I think they're around $500.
Yeah.
But if you're feeling wild, definitely. Yeah. But I just have like, literally, it's like a little handheld mop. I think it was like $19.99. You don't need anything fancy.
No, you don't.
You just need something.
Some people, like some like mom hacks out there, are that you can buy like a shower curtain, just like even a clear one, any plastic shower curtain from the dollar store, and then just put that under your high chair. Yeah. Then it's easy. You could just throw it in the shower and hose it off, throw it outside and hose it off, whatever.
There's the high chair catchy as well, which like goes onto your high chair.
Like there's ways that you can make it not so, especially if you have carpet underneath where you're eating, then I would highly recommend doing some of those tricks. But for us, it's laminate. It's fairly easy to clean. I mean we have a dog too.
I was going to say, you can get a dog, but every time I'm cleaning food off the floor, I'm like, oh, I need a dog. And then I'm like, but you know, it's more work than cleaning food off the floor, having a dog.
So. Yeah, that's true.
But they're great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that made it easier for you?
No, I think those are the main
thing.
things.
Like being prepared for yourself, the education, the CPR, having some gear. I mean, like you don't need anything. You can also feed your baby on the floor. Like if they're able to sit. Too. Yeah. Definitely check out Feeding Littles and Solid Starts. Yeah. Like life-changing. I'm so grateful that they have all this information for us.
Like we recognize it is very scary. We both weren't too scared of it. And maybe because in our jobs, like we deal with high stress situations a lot. So it wasn't like, we felt still like confident we could do it, but it wasn't. But some moms, it's like
a very big fear.
It scares them so much that they won't ever feed their child. They won't even do purees because they get so scared. And you don't want to hold back your child just because it's of your fear, right? Like they need to learn and they need to develop and you want them to grow and learn how to do this. So you have to kind of figure out how you can deal with your stress and talking to a therapist, like getting all these resources, doing your research, really being prepared, feed when you have friends over and family over. Like there's things that you can do to help minimize the risk. And it's just really important to do whatever you need to do. And like we said, you start with purees. If that's what you're comfortable with, you do you. Like whatever works for you and your family, your lifestyle.
We both did. We gave mashed avocado first on a spoon. Yeah. And so that's a puree technically. Like we both, for the first few times we did that to kind of just get used to your baby putting things in their mouth. Yeah. You do what you got to do.
And don't get too overwhelmed by all the things like you need to give this many foods by this age and this age. And like I started keeping track of a list and I stopped eventually. So I'm like, I'm just stressing myself out about like how many foods has she tried? Oh, she's tried 17 new foods. And like, it was just a little bit much. So try not to stress too much about that. Just do your best.
And it's a fun thing to look at new foods. Like the other day I was thinking like, ooh, like what kind of new fruits can he try? And I'm like, ooh, we could try like dragon fruit. Like, those like white or pink ones with the little things. Like I'm just like we want it to be fun, not stressful. Yes. And it's so easy to slide into the like making it overcomplicated and stressful. Yes. And we still do it. I do it sometimes where I like start panicking. Oh my God, he's not eating enough. Oh, he's not getting enough variety. And then I'm like, no, like back to basics. Like this is just supposed to be fun for all of us.
Which brings us to our Mom Day mantra. So go ahead, Karlee.
This one's really simple. Keep food fun.
Yeah. You want to have fun. It's so fun watching them. When you learn, when you watch them, you'll be like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. It is just the cutest, most fun thing. And you have fun. You can have more fun in the kitchen. Like eventually we have one of those helper towers. Yeah. Like I can't wait to cook and like get her to actually start helping mix things and then eat that. Like it's just
definitely
you want to have fun with it, right? Like everything in parenthood, you want to actually be able to enjoy it and not stress yourself out so much that you're missing out on the fun times.
Sure. So if you feel like you're missing out when you're feeding them or you're already dreading giving them food, check out some of those resources that we've talked about because they're super helpful.
With your mom friends, talk about it, like share resources, share recipes that your baby they actually really liked this and it had that's lots of veggies in it. It had it's a good hidden veggie recipe. And like we share recipes all the time. Like, Jordan actually loved this tonight. And then I share the recipe. And
that's actually one of the main things like in our little mom chat, we send like, oh, this is what they're eating for dinner tonight. And then I'm like, oh, like what a good idea. Like we need to try that. Gives you some inspiration too. Yeah, because you need that inspiration.
Yeah.
And then although on the same point, it did actually overwhelm some of our mom friends who weren't big cookers. They're like, oh my God, like your baby's eating all of these meals and mine's just having like banana and toast. And like, that's okay too. Like
different lifestyles.
Yeah.
Keep food fun. The whole point is it is fun. It's fun for them. It should just be fun. So keep food fun.
Food is very fun.
Yeah.
All right.
So if you liked the episode today, if you could give us a review, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
We would really appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like us on the podcast player you're listening on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram. Yeah. Give us a review.
Well, just thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week.
Bye
Happy
now.
Mom Day.